Hi, it's time for a chime video. So we've got something special and unique today. I actually bought this off from a buyer on eBay, and this is a NuTone Time-Chime. And I'm pretty sure that this is a late 1930s, early 1940s NuTone Clock Chime. And you can sort of tell that by generally the way it's finished. It has sort of this textured finish on the metal parts. It of course has the two exposed brass resonators, and the clock face definitely has sort of that Art Deco-y kind of look with the fonts they use for the numbers and the types of hands that they have. And then down here in the center it says Time-Chime. And I bought this because I was interested in it. I'm sort of, not purposely, but seem to have a small collection of pre-war NuTone chimes, especially the more unusual ones, which I think this kind of fits into. One of the unusual things about this type of chime is the clock runs on 110. Now this is not the original cord. This is a cord I'm pretty sure someone grafted onto it at some point, but there were some clock chimes that NuTone made that the clock motors were 110 volts, and they would have a cord to plug them in, or I suppose you could wire it into an electrical junction box behind the chime. But the chime itself is low voltage. In these days it would have been a 20 volt, although some of them could be 8 or 10 volts also, because it seemed to vary a great deal. I'm not sure why that is, but that seems to be the case. Of course, I'm not going to plug this in before I take it apart, because if there's a problem with it, I don't want the magic smoke to escape. So let's go ahead and take it apart and see what we have. Before I take it apart, I want to show you this close-up of the clock dial. So this is the center portion right here, and you can see it's got little musical notes with the lines that like on sheet music, you've got the lines with the notes. I'm not a musical person, so I don't know what you call that exactly. But it's got the notes, and it says NuTone and Time-Chime underneath. And I think that makes it kind of cool. So we'll go ahead and let's lay this down. There seems to be just one screw here on the top. It's a slotted screw. Probably not the original, that would be my guess. And by taking that off, the cover comes off, which is kind of nice. There's actually a little spot down here on the bottom where there would have been another screw. So originally would have had two screws. And inside we do have a Telecron clock motor assembly with some really horribly soldered on connections of this replacement cord that somebody connected to it. There's a rod here that comes out of the Telecron unit, and the little knob to set the hands is right there, and you kind of have to pull down on it a little bit, as most of these are, and that lets you spin the hands to set the time. It does have this indicator here, the little circle above where it says NuTone, that sometimes is red and sometimes is clear or whitish, and I think that's like an AM PM indicator, but I'm not sure, and I might have to go ask my friend Marv, the clock guy, because he probably knows more about that than I do. The Telecron motor assembly says, let's get the magnifiers out so we can actually read it. It actually says Telecron electric clock model 8018, 100 to 125 volts, 60 cycle. It draws 2 watts, and it was made by the Warren Telecron Company in Ashland, Massachusetts, exactly as you would expect it to be. There is no date on it. Maybe on the rotor assembly. Let's take a quick look and see. Maybe we can find a date. That's always a bonus. Alright, so what we can do is, if we loosen these two screws just a little, because I want to take this all the way apart. And maybe we'll loosen these just a little bit also. Nope. And we can sort of spread the case there just a little. We might be able to rotate this, or not. No, I'm guessing not. This is probably one of the ones where the gear drive in the rotor assembly, so this shiny part here with the circular part down here, the case, that's the Telecron rotor assembly. And sometimes the output gear is not centered on the other side, it's offset, and that way it only can go in one way. And there is markings on the case, but they're up here by the coil, so that's not going to do us any good today, and I'm not ready to take this all the way apart yet. That'll happen later. So the other thing we can do is we can use our multimeter and we can measure the resistance of the coil. Resistance of the coil is 700 ohms. Probably pretty close to right. So we'll take a chance and we'll plug it in and see if it goes. If all the lights go out, you'll know why. Nope. Lights didn't go out, but the second hand, can't really see that. So it's plugged in, but it's not going. The second hand's not moving. So we'll unplug it. I'm going to guess that it is getting power, but that's for a future video. So we'll put that aside. And let's take a look at our NuTone chime base. So what are the giveaways that this is an early pre-war, probably late 30s, early 40s NuTone chime? A couple things. One, the label right here, I think it's a decal of some kind that they used on all of the really early chimes. The other thing is you have these knurled nuts here where the wires get attached. That's very common. The other thing that's kind of a giveaway is you've got your two solenoid assemblies, so it's a two-door chime, 2 notes for the front and 1 note for the rear, like all really early NuTone chimes. Let's push this one over also. They're very rough, they're very kind of rusty looking. They all have their original wooden tips. These are not plastic, these are actually wood. This one is probably about 5/8 of an inch long, and the one on the other end probably about the same as is this one, so they're all basically the same and they look like they're all original. So it's very likely that this is a late 1930s, 1940 NuTone chime. You've got 2 notes. So it would go, it's kind of thunky at the moment because the grommets, see how the tone bars are all wiggly? The grommets that hold it onto the threaded rods that come out of the resonators, and they have these acorn nuts on the end, the grommets have all turned hard, so it doesn't really float the way it's supposed to, and that gives it that sort of clunking sound that you really don't want in a door chime. But you do have these 2 really nice brass resonators. They look really, really bad right now, but we're going to see if they'll clean up. You also have this sticker right here. This is Patent Penny, NuTone Chimes Incorporated, Cincinnati, Ohio. Also, a sticker you see on really early NuTone chimes. And as it should have, as they all had, all the way up through probably the mid-2000s, a big label stuck on here that the first thing it says in great big all capital letters, "Do not oil," with an exclamation mark down here. Why did they put that on there? Because they don't want you to oil the chime. That's what everybody wants to do. The people want to put oil in the solenoids and on the plungers, and that just fouls the whole thing up. That was a problem apparently in 1939, and it's still a problem today. So underneath where it says "Do not oil" with the exclamation mark It says, this chime was inspected and found to be in perfect condition before shipping from the factory. You must not oil any part of the mechanism. If tone is not sufficient, there's some crud there, is not sufficiently loud, we recommend installing a NuTone 10-volt transformer. So, what kind of transformer would you have had? I don't know. But obviously, it could work on a 10-volt transformer, which is kind of interesting, because nobody really uses 10-volt transformers anymore, and there seems to be a lot of variation in transformers back in those days. I don't know why exactly, but there is. So let's take a look at the resonator tubes, because I think, with a little help, they can look a lot better. So, I think our brass resonating tubes will clean up. So let's take out our trusty bottle of Brasso. The only thing you should use to do this, and we're going to put a little bit on the end of our rag, like that. And usually what I do is I sort of smear it in. And I'm not going to do the whole thing right now, but I'm going to do a little bit of it. We're going to do right up here where it's easy to see. It's nothing more exciting than watching some fella on YouTube polish his brass tubes. A lot of people ask me, were the tubes coated with lacquer or varnish or some coating when they were new so they wouldn't tarnish? And you should be able to tell, based on what these look like, that no, they weren't. And you should never, ever do that. Because while I'm not a brass plating expert, or perhaps it would be a brass coating expert, I'm pretty sure that if you put some kind of coating on them after you polish them, you'll never be able to polish them again because of the coating. And I believe that unless somehow your coating process is so incredibly perfect and so incredibly sealed up that over time air and moisture is going to get underneath the coating and the brass is going to turn dark, and then it's all sealed up, and what are you going to do? Then you got to try to remove the coating that you put on because you were trying to be so clever about it. And I think that's a bad idea. So that's pretty good for a couple minutes effort. You can see what comes off on the rag, but that's common. Part of that is the tarnish on the brass. Part of that is what happens from the Brasso, I think. And with just a little bit of effort, you can see that this looks a whole lot better than this. So with a little bit of work, this chime can be brought back to work like new again. There you have it. Just a quick little video about our NuTone Time-Chime. You'll be seeing this one again because I have to fix the clock and I have to service the mechanism and I have to finish polishing up the tubes now because I've already started, so we've got to make it look nice. And in the end, we'll get to hear what it sounds like, because there's probably very few people left alive that have ever heard what a 1939 NuTone Time-Chime sounds like. I hope you found this interesting and perhaps helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. It's a black thumbs up today on YouTube because that always helps. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.